This group is a group of women that have all had children, and so we're going to make artwork about their experience of giving birth and the early years of parenting. But at this stage in the course, which is only in the second week of the 12 weeks, I'm just giving them structures and methods for making contemporary art, and the individual meanings will be imparted into that sculpture or video or photography that they make much more as we go along. So at the moment they're just being given methods for what I'd say is making contemporary art.
What are you doing?
We're making making a bed, and these are all the common objects that we think we find in our bed, such as toys, crumbs, tissues, pants, socks,
Use
trousers.
sanitary towel.
Yes. Instead of using it to clean up spillages, we've used the water, which could be a spillage, and make a bed, and use this as the glue that holds everything together to make other things from one structure.
Is the bed quite an important thing?
I think it's where everyone comes together in the morning, before everyone goes to work, when everyone wakes up. It's like the base where everyone can snuggle and get warm and just cuddle. So there's obviously going to be crumbs, because that's where you eat. You could have some breakfast in bed, toys, teddies, blankets from the kids, and then there's things like pants and pyjamas and socks that are from mums and dads. So it's like the base that brings the family together. And I guess when you're pregnant as well, and you've got a newborn, and you're recovering and recuperating, that's where you spend a lot of your time as well, in bed, with the Moses basket next to you. Then you can feed and sleep and feed and sleep. That's
Sometimes it kind of feels like a friend, but
Yeah.
sometimes like a foe, in that you kind of feel,
can't get out of bed,
yeah,
but
you're
you
sort
want
of
to.
there, stuck for eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of like you're living in the bed.
Yeah. But then when you're tired after a day, that's where you come, and that's where you want to be, in bed. And that's like your haven, because you just think, after this day, all I want to do is go to
And it's a
bed.
sense of relief, isn't it,
Yeah.
as well? But then there's the flip side of that, when you're feeling down, and the whole just wanting to get underneath.
quilt, yeah.
That's a good place to retreat.
Yeah, retreat.
Yeah. And it's also becomes like there's the obsession with sleep as well, in the how much you're getting,
Yeah.
or the lack of it as
Yeah.
well. I'm happy with that.
It's a really good group. It's a really interesting group of women, and the women, quite a lot of them are quite well educated, so I've got to set it at a certain level for them. And the first week I felt like I'd pitched it just right, because I didn't have to change anything in the workshop. I just could run through, and everybody seemed to be absorbing, and I wasn't losing any people, and people weren't confused. And then this week, it's the same, very similar structure, and again, I can see now the gaps in what people need to develop and what they are already good at. But in 12 weeks, we should have quite a few artworks, hopefully. It's not about recalling the birth. It's a question that keeps going around your head about the event of the labour, or the kind of early days leading up to it, or the early days after it, but around the birth event. And that's what you're representing through your objects. Now, it can be something that is quite kind of traumatic and problem, and you could say visceral, or it could be something that's poetic and a small little thing that happened that is about the bird song in the morning. It could be, as you can play it in lots of different ways, okay?
Right. This is my nightshirt, what I wore in labour. I thought it's generally a long, sort of dignified length, so you can just wander around with it covering up your dignity. Little did I know that would go out of the window shortly after. The whole time towards the end of labour, all I was focusing on was getting it off, just pulling it off, just trying to get it off, but I couldn't because I had a drip in my hand where they kept shoving medication, where they put everything in. And my hand had ballooned and it was really big and really uncomfortable, and all I kept focusing on was the pain in my hand and just wanting to get this drip out, because the pain was more focused on there than it was there, and that was what I was focusing on, and all I just wanted to do was just get this off, but I couldn't because it was just impossible. And the reason why I wanted to get it off was because I wanted skin to skin, and I wanted her there, and I wanted her to feed, and I thought, my dignity's lost. The midwives kept coming in and out, the door was wide open, all my dignity was lost, and all I kept focusing on was getting it off, just getting it off so I could focus on the skin to skin. And I've just got photos of the gown being up there while she's feeding, and then my ballooned, incredible Hulk hand.
Cannula. Mine was like nearly 16 years ago. With Jack, I had the cannula, and I just remember, although I didn't get Hulk hand, but I do remember that you couldn't move your hand because every time you did, it just dug in, and it was really painful. And again, and I know why it was there, because I'd lost a lot of blood, and it was hormone replacement, whatever it was. But yeah, it's like, I'm with you with the cannula. Didn't like
I've never had a cannula. I've put in a lot of cannulas. It's very powerful what people say. It's not just how distracting and how painful they can be, but how disempowered the system of being in hospital makes you feel. I mean, you can take out a cannula yourself. If it's not being used, you could. I would, but that's because I have the knowledge of working within the system, and that really strikes me, and it's a good for me to listen to when I work inside systems like that.
Yeah. I had a C-section with Sam, and he was taken away, which I understand why they had to do that, gave him some oxygen, but it felt, I don't know how long it was, but it felt like forever. And there was this really weird thing in me that when they brought him back, I wasn't 100% sure he was mine. That was really weird, because I didn't know what was going on behind me, and I had it in my head that there was other people in operating rooms behind me, and they took him off behind me. I don't know, and it was just a weird thing that I didn't know for a little while. It took quite a while for me to be 100% convinced that he was my baby.
Right, this is the T-shirt that I wore when in labour with Perry. This belongs to my partner, and I chose it because I wanted something that was like loose-fitting, but also I think I loved the fact that, you know, it's dermid, and I felt like enveloped in it, and there's a lot of love for the T-shirt. For me, it kind of represents, it's kind of hope, and there's that joyfulness. It also makes me think of, we have some pictures that we took of when I was at the beginning, the early stages of the labour, and I'm sat on a birthing ball, and I'm wearing this T-shirt, and in that picture I just look really calm and happy, and it's positive, and it makes me, it's a picture full of joy. Then there's the there's a flip side to that picture, because there's an element of me that wants to give that woman a big massive hug in that picture, because she has no idea of what is about, what is about to happen to her, what, the events that are going to unfold, and just the sheer horror of that. And that makes me feel very sad. And I feel really sad for her, because she is so positive, and I just think, you're a fool, just sitting there, bouncing on your ball, you have no idea. It wasn't a pleasant labour, it was a very traumatic labour. Perry had an umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, which I wasn't aware of. It was getting it was very protracted, not the longest labour, but... and it got to the point where, I was really wanting to push, but they wouldn't allow me to push, and it turned out because every time I pushed, his oxygen levels were dropping, because it was tightening around his neck, and I was stopping him from breathing. And they also cut me. They cut me 3 times. And then after the birth, I began bleeding out, and they kept coming back in, and they'd scrape me out. And then I'd bleed out again, and they'd come back in, and they'd scrape me out. And this happened again about 3 times. And I just remember feeling like, because birthing is very primal, it's a very primal thing, and I do remember feeling like just the fact that kept playing in my head that if I was an animal, I felt they would have treated me kinder, and I kept thinking they would have put me down. They would have put me down by now. They wouldn't have allowed me to suffer that amount of just pain, and it was just horrendous. And the other thing was after the scraping. I remember saying to my partner that I felt like I'd been gang raped, and it was just horrible.
There's an actual whole lot of literature around being called birth rape, that feeling of being raped when you've given birth, that it's tantamount. You can define it as a traumatic birth experience, as a birth rape, which just seems, for some people, it's just the most awful way to describe birth, and for some people it's just the reality, and that fits with their experience. And I think for me, it wasn't akin to a feeling rape, but it was something around being violated, this kind of this sameness of feeling through your birth experience, being violated, and the shock of that, that can actually happen. And you're supposed to just kind of walk on and get on. After that, look after a baby and breastfeed and all those things. So that's my experience, and that was the experience of when I had my first baby, and it was a section, and there's seemingly dozens of people in the room with me, each doing something to my body, and not knowing their names or anything about them, and just feeling totally disempowered and scared and violated.
After my first pregnancy, I was told that I had to have a C-section because there were so many implications about, because I had 3rd-degree tears, so if I didn't want anything, bowel, bladder, anything like that, then I'd have to have a C-section. So all throughout the pregnancy, I was planning on the C-section, so I had to go into the hospital. So that's why I didn't think about anything like hypnobirthing or home birth, because I was told that I had to. And right up until the day, they told me that whoever told me that I had to have a C-section was wrong, and they said, you don't need a C-section. You could have had a normal delivery and everything. So I don't know who's told you this, but you could have done it just normally. So I was just, from the beginning, just confused as to why they told me all this information. And that was on the very day that I was going in for my C-section. And then all throughout the process being terrified and just scared. And then obviously, as I said, I could see them cutting me through the reflection in the thing, just thinking, why do I have to go through this? And then throughout the whole process, for Coral to be handed to me, I was just crying the whole time, just crying. And so I guess I've brought up now another question without even thinking about it. But I had a lot of guilt on myself, like why could I had just so many questions and so much guilt.
When I hear other mums talking about feeling guilty, I feel so sad that but I carry around guilt all the time. You know, you sign up as soon as you become pregnant, you start feeling guilty, and it's just so pointless and doesn't go anywhere. And for myself, as much as when I hear it reflected back on other mums, I just can't bear the mother guilt. It's pointless, you know.
I was not having things done to me, apart from by my own body and by my baby. So I didn't feel like things were taken from me. I felt afterwards, on reflection, very empowered by both my labours and deliveries. With my second baby, Luke, I was looked after by the one-to-one team. Again, I had the same midwife. So one of the same midwives delivered both of my children. And again, it was a quick, straightforward labour and delivery. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I got pregnant with Belle when I was 33, and it was quite a hard pregnancy. I felt really quite ill all the way through it, and I had fibroids, and I kept fainting at work and other embarrassing things. So it was quite a long slog. And so when it came to coming near the birth, I was really looking forward to not feeling ill all the time. And I decided that I wanted to do hypnobirthing because I'd done yoga before, and I found the whole thinking around it really useful, and the breathing. So I found a quiet place, and the place that was quietest for me was a lake in Canada, because my family live in Canada, and we've been out there. I've been about 13, 14 times, and when we go in the summer, we always go camping and canoeing. We go off into the wilderness for 3 or 4 days, take all our food and our camping things, and we canoe across the lake. My cousin's made his own canoe, and we find an island and we camp there. And then we can go swimming. We don't see anybody. We just hear the loons. I don't know if you heard a loon call. It's like, woo! And so for me, that was my quiet place. So I went into labour. There was a sort of build up to it, went to hospital, came back, but eventually we ended up in hospital, and I just went straight into my hypnobirthing. I got into my quiet place, and I was there. At first I was swimming in the lake, and then later as the contractions got harder and harder, I was in a canoe on a lake, and it's such a cliche, but there she was. There was my North American Indian woman with me, and she was there, and she had a baby, and she was giving me great strength. So I was sitting in the canoe with her, and sometimes I was her, and sometimes she was just with me when we were on the lake. And I did the whole of the labour to about 9 centimetres on 2 paracetamol. I didn't need any other pain relief, because I was kind of riding the wave. I was sort of really, really enjoying it. And then the doctor came in and he said, we're just going to do a scratch test on your baby's head, because we don't think that she's okay. I think there might be a little bit of a problem. So they did a scratch test, and they took it away, and I was there with this lovely woman, and really, I mean, Jonathan was beside me, and he was there holding my hand all the time. I knew he was there. So it was I was in a very strong place. So they took the scratch test away, the little bit of blood that they'd taken from her head, and I was just aware of more and more people in the room. And then suddenly they came back in, and this nurse said, I think it was Cat 7, which was just absolute emergency. And the doctor came up to me and he said, because on all my forms I'm Jennifer, very formal, and he said, Jennifer, we have to get this baby out now. And I was so relaxed with my hypnobirthing, my reaction was, I literally said to him, oh bugger, I was doing so well. Anyway, they got my beautiful Belle out, and I didn't see her for about 8 hours. And finally Jonathan sprang her out of the critical care for me, the ICU place. He said, she needs to see her baby. And they dressed her up, and I'd come round and I was all wired up, just wires everywhere. And they put her in my arms and she had wires and I had wires. And I was just like, get these wires out of me. So they took all the wires out, and then I held my baby, and that was lovely.
Your first birth with Bella is really similar to mine with Sam, and I did hypnobirthing, and I ended up with a C-section. I got to 9 centimetres and felt really, really calm, and really similarly, I don't think of it as traumatic, and I think because I was in a good place, everything, it was so, I mean, I was at home until 9 centimetres, but then I had to go into hospital, but it was all quite calm going into hospital, and so it's just so similar hearing it, and it's really nice to hear someone who's had a similar experience and them saying this baby has to come out now. I'm like, oh, what a shame. I didn't want that. And Andy being a lot more traumatised than I was, because I felt a bit more in control, I guess. I mean, were you put under there? Were you general? No, I didn't have that, but Andy had to get put in all the greens and all this, and he was whisked away and then came back, and he said, I talked to him recently about it, and he said what was going through his mind was like, you hurt my wife and my baby, I'm going to kill you. That's how he felt towards the doctors, but I was joking with them and asking about their life stories. But yeah, it was, I think the hypnobirthing definitely helped. Even the C-section's necessary, but it's still nice to be in that calm place. And we sat and watched the royal wedding. And I'm not a royalist, but
Get a bit emotional at that time.
Sameness is that I also had difficult birth, but the difference is I wish I would know how it can be to be in control all of this that is happening with you, and I think it's a good example. Maybe I will I will keep that in the future to try. Thank you.
Wanting them to pursue their own artistic concerns, own ideas, own themes, and also decide on the materials and objects that they use. I divided it into 2, so that the first session was them working on their own ideas, but with all a collective material. And then the second part was when they worked on their own ideas and decided upon their own materials. So I'm trying to stagger it and put it into stages so that they find it an easy journey from me facilitating structured workshops to them having their own individual practice. Would you like to say anything about how you'd like it to be finally presented? Or would you like us to go straight into feedback?
Go straight in.
So have a look at the work and think about if it was your work, you just made this, you put yourself in the artist's shoes, how would you develop it? You're now the critic, the artist. At the same time, think about it from an artist's position.
I relax as we move smoothly.
Remember these words.
Well, I wanted to bring in something that shows the conflict within me, and blame towards myself, and I'm thinking of myself as the faulty tap that needed to be fixed. This is all coming out because I started reading the hypnobirthing book after I did my record my video last time, and a lot of feelings were coming out, and quite a lot of negative feelings were coming out while I was reading the hypnobirthing book. And it's the hypnobirthing book talks about the caregivers. Make sure the caregivers do this, this, and this. So many people's births go wrong because of the caregivers, this, and this. And I was like, I actually don't blame my caregivers. So if it went wrong, if it's not the caregiver's fault, it must be my fault. Something wrong with me, and that's something that I'm trying to work through. So.
Lucy?
I feel a bit distracted by that CD, but then when everyone is silent and there's just the noise of it, I think it complements the work quite well.
Yeah, I do.
I want to own, contain, hang on to every moment. I can't link the baby in hospital who I held skin to skin for hours to the boy now. They're like separate people. Each stage feels completely separate from the memory of what has gone before. Seasons change, the boy changes, new crazes, what was an obsession is now for babies and banished to the cellar. The grief of each passing stage is almost equal to the joy in it. There are days when, fuck kids, and time slips by in a haze of chaos and just getting through the day. But I want to grab, catch, pull back each moment and have it again so that I can really experience it, own it, contain and hang on to it. And the tragedy is that is impossible. These stages have gone and we've moved on to the next. The little boy is gone and he has become this boy now. And I'm constantly grieving the loss of him while constantly feeling the joy, and love of who he is now. So I'm thinking that someone should be pegging them up as we go, and because I'm talking about all the different crazes that the kids go through, I want to have more that says that.
You know, the things that you talk about that are banished to the cellar, you could get them out of the cellar, and when somebody's pegging them out on the line, sort of have them, do you know what I mean? Like, in my house anyway, you're always stepping over things and it's like an obstacle course. So that could be part of it, like some of it could be broken, like a toy could be broken or something, or in its box or something, and you could be like stepping over it as though it's like, I don't know.
I agree with what everyone said. I really like all the ideas, but at the same time, all morning I've been totally drawn to this.
It looks fab, doesn't it?
As it is, and I really, really like your words, and they need to be in it. But I guess if people are there all day, they're going to see all this on its own anyway. I think people need to just look at that and mourn themselves off, because it's more, you know, looking at the tiny weeny ones makes me mourn, and before they hear the words.
Do you think the words need to be there at all then?
Well, I love the words, they made me cry. but I like that on its own as well.
We've got one session left now before we all meet the circle where we're going to exhibit. And I'm very pleased with the amount of adventure and risk-taking and variety of artwork that's going to be on show. I'm really pleased with the way that they are working on an individual artistic concern that's come from these workshops.
But it's interesting, I just look all these things, they cause pain. I don't know, maybe it's, but it made in a way like it's beautiful pain.
So the way that I've run the workshops is that I'm informing them about contemporary art, and people are really enjoying that nutrition as well as that expression in their lives. And I am noticing that people are really foreseeing the ending and getting quite upset about this loss of time and this experience that's happening, you know, once a week for them. So that's obviously been quite important to them.
Very apprehensive about getting involved in this, and now that I have got involved, and it's like you know, that I really enjoyed the creative process and experiences and use that and transform that into art. It's just been quite eye-opening, and there's a definite sadness in that it's can come to an end, and not having an avenue to to be able to do it.
I trust my body to know what to do, and I follow its lead. My body and my baby know how to work together in harmony. My mind is relaxed. My body is relaxed. I relax as we move smoothly and easily through labor and birth.
This is the first time I've listened to something like that since I was pregnant, and it was just making me laugh. I believed in it so wholeheartedly, and I never dilated at all. So no, my body didn't know how to do any of it naturally, and I can't even really articulate what that means to me to listen to that now in this setting. But this is a powerful thing to show to someone who invested in that and then had a difficult childbirth.
Someone who's trying to invest in it again.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to undermine it, because actually I did get a lot from it, but it is just so interesting to look back on it.
I think I don't know where that quote comes from about long-term abandonment for the baby, but I have a friend who said to me, if you have a C-section, you won't bond. You won't, what was the word? Yeah, you won't bond, there won't be all those hormones. And I was so angry because I didn't have any choice about it. So yeah, the whole thing in a way makes me laugh, but in another way it makes me furious.
That's the anger is what I've been trying to work through. I think I have. I managed to. The project has helped.
Okay, we're gonna push this baby out without the contraction because she has too much power. Little teeny, like easy, just like that. Go ahead, Cass. Look at your baby. No! Easy. Get it out!
I titled my work In Search of Silence, and I tried to work with audio and image. The audio, I think you need to have a time to listen. It's a very realistic, straightforward, physical thing like birth. And I couldn't agree more with the quotation of Leslie Reagan about the thing that pregnancy is a tightrope walking. And I really felt that during my pregnancy, and I think it's a time when your mind is not silent, and I really wanted to look for silence. Silence that is embracing, inviting, and working with a material like cotton was very, very interesting thing. It has a positive side and beginning and embracing and warm and gentle, and it was an interesting process. I found it quite nice to juxtapose silence and birth. Yeah, that's my work.
Within our group, we looked at sort of form and functionality of materials, and I just love what you've done with that and how you've used it to soften everything. It's beautiful.
Did you do this outside of the group, or is that something you did in the group?
It's in the room where we were working.
Oh.
I just found it so very relaxed. It's a yoga room. We loved it very much. And
doesn't look anything like our room, does
No.
it?
It's a lot quieter.
There's something for me as a non-mother, something about how those kind of baby smells are not homely. There's something kind of a bit icky about them, and you know, distancing, and kind of don't really want to know to a certain extent. Beautiful work, but you know, the smells, I'd kind of leave those behind.
I thought it was brilliant to have art that is about smell. Maybe I don't experience much art, but I think that's really rare.
When I was making these things and working on these, I really valued this sort of time and space to be very much sort of in the moment and concentrating on what I was doing.
Very thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Well, the more I look at it, the more things pop into my head. So I was just thinking about nature and how we can't contain nature or predict how it's going to play itself out necessarily, but that we might try to influence it. It just made me start thinking about that, really.
I want to own, contain and hang on to every moment. I can't link the baby in hospital, who I held skin to skin for hours, to the boy now. They're like separate beings. Seasons change, the boy changes, new crazes. What was an obsession is now just for babies and banished to the cellar. Each stage feels completely separate from the memory of what has gone before. This is my piece, the washing line, and it's called Hanging On. And then these poems, I think I found that perhaps sculpture wasn't my medium when we were experimenting with different artistic media, but I did write a lot, and I've been writing and writing. And it's quite simple, obvious stuff, but I just feel like I need to get stuff down. So this is one of my poems that, actually, Lisa, go on, you read it out.
I've never read it before, so excuse me, and this isn't like my...
Can I read it?
Okay, better mother. If I was a better mother, I'd bake my own bread. There would always be homemade biscuits in the tin, and not only that, I would bake with my children. If I was a better mother, I would puree only organic food for the baby. I would buy food without packaging. And not only that, I would grow my own vegetables. If I was a better mother, I would cook a hearty family meal every day. The house would always be clean, and not only that, I would enjoy doing it. Or if I was a better mother, I wouldn't care if the house wasn't clean. It would be a sign of how fun and creative I am. We would paint all the time and build things out of plasticine. If I was a better mother, I would never be anxious about what was the right thing to do. I would always be able to make decisions with conviction, and I would never take my anger out on Daddy. If I was a better mother, my children would sleep all night, and I would have time to put makeup on, and I would never be too tired. If I was a better mother, I wouldn't give a hoot about togging up and going out in the rain. My children wouldn't watch so much TV, and they would have loads of fresh air. If I was a better mother, my children wouldn't have tantrums, and they would eat olives and raw vegetables dipped in hummus, and I would never feed my baby formula milk. Or, if I was a better mother, I wouldn't care if I did, or I didn't, because I would be carefree. If I was a better mother, I would surely have more time for myself. I would go out on girls' nights, and I wouldn't feel guilty. If I was a better mother, I would be in the moment. I would be able to compartmentalise work, housework and quality time with family. If I was a better mother, I wouldn't compare myself with other mums or secretly compare my children with other children. If I was a better mother, whatever I have or have not amounted to would be of no consequence, because being a mother would be enough. If I was a better mother, I would be someone else.